So what's dharmata?
Which,
Have some
well,
fun.
there's two.
Okay. What are
The
two?
first one is dharmata shunyata. So Dzogchen texts, they talk about two kinds of dharmata. They talk about dharmata shunyata or choni nunsum tongpani, and then they talk about dharmata pradyaksha or
Nunsum.
choni nunsum.
Yeah.
Simple enough. And so the first is really related to tekcho, which is discovering the nature of your mind and resting in that knowledge with your six sense organs just freely relaxed, loose, with all making contact with their sense objects, completely the opposite of most systems of meditation.
Great. Let's pause here. This is interesting. Let's pause here. So this is emptiness dharmata.
Yeah.
This year. And so in emptiness dharmata, this has to do with treksha, relaxing, and with senses open, not restrained.
Making contact with their objects. Yep.
And we would describe this as sort of a shamatha as well?
No.
Or not? This is
No, because it's informed by the view.
Yeah. Okay. So this is
So they say tekchot is the
tekchot.
view.
Yeah.
And then togal is the meditation.
Yeah.
Of course, togal I don't really want to talk about very much, mostly because it causes people to, go into violent flights of fantasy about the practice. But here we can say that basically, when we're talking about choni nunsum, we're talking about,
which is the second one.
The second one. We're talking about actually having a direct experience of your own Buddha nature is the simplest way to put it.
So now we entered.
But it's sort of visually based.
Okay. Yeah. So now we've entered the visions. So,
right. So the reason why we don't want to go into this is the whole point of why we deviated into samsara.
Yeah.
In the first place, from a Dzogchen point of view, is because when our mind first experienced itself, it had two choices. It could either recognize the object of its experience as being its own state.
Yep.
Or if it reified its experience as being an other, and even did so much as say, oh, this is originally pure. Even if it did that much, this automatically is a deviation.
Yeah.
And then you automatically enter into what's known as from the innate ignorance, which is where we have a connate ignorance. I'm sorry. It's called connate, not innate. It's the same term, len chike marikpa, but it's called connate because two things are arising.
Sahaja.
I don't think so.
Really?
There's a subject, and there seems to be an object. There's the mind and its experience.
Yeah.
And it seems that that's two things.
Yeah.
But Samantabhadra, according to the sort of narrative, recognized that experience as being his own state, or her own state, or their own state. I don't know. Pick your pronoun. And achieved Buddhahood without without engaging in a single moment of virtue.
Yeah.
We, on the other hand, entered the imputing ignorance because disappearance, we said, oh, that's other. That's not me. I'm over here. That's over there. And so then we entered into delusion. So it's not the case that Samantabhadra was never ignorant. It's the case that Samantabhadra never entered into delusion. And this is a very important point for understanding Dzogchen teachings in general. Very important point. And so that's why Dzogchen teachings claim that if you are capable of recognizing this experience of yourself as your own experience in a very precise way, you can wake up instantly, just like picking fruit off of a tree, and there's no need to practice two accumulations and everything, but there's a caveat. The caveat is that until you actually have this discovery, then probably, since we're all subject to karma and affliction, it's probably a little better for you if you continue to engage in sort of two accumulation style practices. But once you have firm, confident knowledge of this kind of teaching, even if you can't practice it very much in this life, it says in the Dzogchen Tantras that there's not a single person who enters into this teaching for whom Buddhahood is not a certainty.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like in some other teachings, it's like, oh, you better practice, you better do this, you better do that, because you just don't know in your next life, you could wind up in like being like, sort of a worm in the bottom of a pile of manure. You just don't know. You have no idea what karma's coming down the pike for you. In Dzogchen teachings, it says, listen, if you have this one piece of knowledge if you have this one piece of certainty based on your own direct perception, then for you, samsara is closed forever. This is the promise of Dzogchen teachings.
So we're talking about the dharmata of emptiness here, or the direct dharmata?
Dharmata of direct perception,
So-
but also
yeah.
dharmata of, so the thing is that if you cultivate dharmata shunyata in a proper way according to Dzogchen teachings, you will eventually encounter dharmata pratyaksha. If you encounter dharmata pratyaksha in a proper way, you will eventually encounter dharmata shunyata as a direct perception.